seem to be around 1,000 to 1,500 hours between IT and business. We're talking about the overall effort being spent both on a planning as well as from a testing standpoint. Also about 16 weeks overall if it is quarterly updates, a lot more if it is monthly updates, if it's EPM cloud, as the number of weeks that organizations are spending. And about the speed with which you get these changes, again, there are a lot of benefits to it, but it comes fast and furious. So about 10 weeks between each release that you'll be getting that you would require to do testing continuously. Right. So these are some stats to keep in mind. So let's talk about uh, the benefits and the new responsibilities this continuous innovation and delivery that is being provided by your cloud SaaS applications, right? Some of the benefits that you're getting by moving to cloud SaaS is that unlike on-prem, you get much more faster continuous innovation of new features, new enhancements. The bug fixes are delivered much faster. The timeline is more predictable, though you do get these changes faster, but it is on a predictable schedule, so you can plan for it. Since it is all being managed by your SaaS provider in terms of the fixes, releases, deployments, everything, so your the operational overhead is reduced, and a lot of these changes and improvements, the continuously are getting pushed to you much faster than it used to be in on-prem. But with this comes new responsibilities that customers have to gear up for. One is you have to keep up with the pace of change that is coming in, as I've noted in my previous slide, the speed with which you are getting these changes. Also, spend time evaluating these new features that are being pushed towards you to see do you want to adopt those immediately? Do you want to wait? What are the business benefits? So you'll need to spend time evaluating those so that you make the decisions on adopting these changes. Uh, Maintaining the continuity of the application, since you're getting these changes continuously, making sure that whatever you have implemented is continuing to work as expected, and keep the application running as these updates are happening, and the need for continuous regression testing, right? Since these are coming in so frequently, you need to make sure that you're able to test these changes continuously so that nothing gets leaked into production, right? So these are some of the benefits and new responsibilities. So what are the options you have when it comes to this testing, right? So obviously you can test manually, which is time consuming. From a coverage standpoint, it might not be comprehensive. You're just picking and choosing the changes that you're testing, but not all the test cases that you might have. Or if you do decide to do all the testing, then you'll have to put in a significant amount of work. We've also noticed that customers who are testing manually are putting off these new features adoption, and only taking the ones that are mandatory changes so that they can focus on testing and making sure those are working as expected, versus the new features that could actually help the business. So the second option you have is you could build your own automation solution using the tools available. Some of the things you have to consider in this option is whether you're going to use open source, whether you're going to license a tool, the cost of that. You'll have to build a framework around it. You need to have resources who've got the skill set to build this framework, maintain it continuously, and all. The main thing that we've noticed customers struggle with when they do their own automation solution is that you can get automated test cases, you can get it up and running, but since there is a small window that you get when these updates are provided to you, maintaining those test cases, automated test cases, and executing them in a timely manner is where we've seen customers abandon automation and then fall back to doing things manually. And after 2 3 releases of not keeping the test cases updated, you probably whatever investment you've done in the beginning to automate will go to waste, because you again have to go back and get those test cases updated and all. So maintenance is one area you should keep in mind if you decide to go build your own solution. How quickly can you maintain, and things like that? Not just that a tool can automate. There are a lot of tools that can automate, but are you able to keep up with the pace of change? And the last option you have is subscribe to an automated testing as a service solution, where you're kind of subscribing to a service, not worrying about license cost, hardware, software cost, resource cost, and all. You're paying for what you're using, and you're having your testing taken care of, and you can then focus more on the new features that are coming in, and any other business critical work that you have versus doing testing, right? So those are the three main options that you have when it comes to testing of your products. So how automation can minimize your business disruption, right? If you do decide to move in the direction of taking up automation. So one is the speed of change, the agility that is provided for you to adopt new changes would be much better, because you don't have to worry about running these tests manually. There's a lot more predictability, considering that with the cloud SaaS applications, the whole change management is owned by your SaaS provider. When it comes to what goes into a release, when does that release go into production and things like that, and it's not easy to roll back because they're doing it at a larger scale. With automation in place, you'll have a lot more predictability in terms of making sure that when things go into production, nothing business critical is going to break. The rollouts are going to be the quality of the rollouts are going to be much better. You don't have to hope and pray that things are going to work when it goes into production, versus being confident that, hey, I've tested it, it's working, we're good to go, right? Also, you can free up key personnel to do their business critical work versus doing testing that really doesn't add a lot of value to the organization. So that can be taken care from an automation standpoint, and people don't have to run these tests manually. And last but not least, you'll lower costs, because if you have to spend the amount of time most of our customers are spending, were spending doing things manually, with automation in place, you would start realizing the return on investment from cost as well as effort standpoint, pretty significantly. So I'll take a quick customer case study to walk you through how this customer has adopted automation and the benefits that they're able to get. So this is a customer who's a leading integrated provider of construction, repair, and engineering services. So some of the challenges that this customer had, they went live with Cloud SaaS about 4 years ago, I believe, and they've implemented HCM Cloud, ERP Cloud, and PPM Cloud. And one of the things that they were facing challenges is they have gotten into leveraging automation using RPA bots. But one of the things that they've had some challenges with is the maintenance of these tests. And also, it was a little patchy. They had some tests, some parts of the tests automated, some parts of the test needed manual intervention. Since they do a lot of end-to-end testing, that was creating a lot of challenges in terms of just leveraging automation to do this testing. A significant amount of effort was being spent both by IT and business to do these quarterly updates testing every time they get a release. New feature adoption was completely slowed down. Most of the time, they were putting that off, turning it off, the new features that are getting pushed, which are not mandatory. So from an solution standpoint, they've decided to subscribe to automated testing as a service with CloudTestr. Since then, all the test cases have been automated across all the modules, both standalone as well as end-to-end flows. About 800 plus tests have been automated. A customer has access to the dashboards and testing artifacts in terms of results, in terms of documentation. Also, they get impact analysis report of the changes that are coming in ahead of time as part of the process. So that helped them not spend too much time reviewing the release notes and figuring out what is changing. As part of the service, that was also something that has been incorporated. And automated testing was used to validate all the quarterly releases, and all this is done in the first 2 to 5 business days. The documentation is auto-generated, so your documentation is always kept up to date, and you don't have to worry about documentation going stale. Early defect detection with automation in week one itself, from day one, you're able to find those issues. And this is a payroll customer, and they've also leveraged payroll data validation tool as well to validate the payroll data, apart from the functional regression testing that has been done. So how did how does this work, right? So there is always a one-time onboarding that has been that is done to make sure that the automated tests are onboarded for a customer-specific implementation. For example, whatever personalizations that they might have done, whatever configurations they have done, the automated tests are geared up to a customer-specific implementation, and there is a one-time onboarding that happens, usually about 6 weeks or so. Once that one-time onboarding is done, every time there is a release that comes in, first step is to have an impact analysis of these changes that are coming in. That could be fixes, enhancements, new features, and how does it impact the customer implementation? How does it impact the automated test cases that have already been developed, right? So that report is generated. Then once the pod is updated, the tests are executed. Any tests that need to be updated are updated. Any defects found, do a quick triage to make sure it's really a defect. SR gets logged, or if it's a personalization, then the team resolves the personalization issue. Um, and once it is done, retesting of the failure test cases are done. And apart from functional regression testing, we also perform auto health checks. So this is where we're also monitoring, are there any process slowdowns happening or any security breakdowns happening, right? Whether it's, if even if you have custom roles that you have set up, it's tested to make sure that there is no security breakdown happening. And also, though it's a SaaS application, we cannot put load on it. You could still, at a transaction level, monitor the processes to see if they're slowing down or if they're working as expected and all, and monitor and notify on that. And once this is done, you get a final report. Results are reviewed and signed off, right? So, and this steps usually are done within the first week. The only thing that gets spilled into the week after is in case there are defects that got resolved and retesting is needed. Right, so that's kind of a step-by-step process that has been followed, from impact analysis to release validation sign off anytime there is a release that comes in. So some of the benefits realized by this particular customer, one is the proactive impact analysis has been helpful, so they don't have to weed through the release notes and figure out what's changing. Automated release validation within 5 business days has also helped them, one, complete the testing as well as review the new features that are getting pushed. Instead of automatically turning them off, they're at least evaluating those features and adopting those features. Freed up the key personnel to focus on business critical tasks. This has been huge because this particular customer was spending almost 1,500 plus hours per quarterly release to do this testing between IT and business. We were able to significantly reduce that time and effort being spent by the team. Coverage, from a coverage standpoint, because automation is in place, every time there is a release, we are able to completely run these tests without having to pick and choose what to execute. And the customer is able to focus on adoption of new features and functionality now, versus just doing testing as needed. So let me jump into the CloudTestr platform, and how this platform is helping cloud SaaS customers in their ongoing continuous release testing. So the platform itself is an enterprise platform that does support different types of applications, whether it's your SaaS applications or on-prem, web, mobile integrations and all. As we all live in a hybrid world, not everything is on the cloud. There might be certain applications still on-prem, or you're interfacing with some third-party systems and all, right? So the platform itself does support automation testing across different types of applications. It is hosted on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. It's very secure, same place as your Oracle Cloud SaaS applications are hosted. And solution itself, we predominantly provide this as testing as a service model. Though we provide it as a service model, you still have access to the platform where you can log in, look at the dashboards and metrics. You can download the documentation, download the results files, use it for audit purposes. Things that are important to your organization, you could do it by logging into the platform in real time. Whereas as part of the service, we will automate, maintain, and execute these tests on an ongoing basis. In terms of different types of testing that we perform, we do perform functional regression testing, integrations testing, end-to-end testing. And this end-to-end testing could be within your application. Like, for example, if you are doing procure to pay process or hire to retire process or order to cash process and all that within your cloud SaaS applications, or it could be between different systems. For example, I could create an account in Salesforce and I could come to the SaaS application and validate that the account got created, or it could be any API level integration, or FTP based integration and all, right? So the end-to-end testing could be between systems, the same system. So the multiple ways we can handle that. Uh, right, so and without any manual intervention, right? So this significantly reduces the amount of time that is being spent to do testing, even when you have to run a complete end-to-end processes with upstream downstream systems. As I mentioned before, we also track the transaction level performance and notify you if we see any degradation in performance, and we also perform role-based security testing as part of the tests. So some of the benefits that customers are able to get with CloudTestr, both during implementation as well as ongoing support, is one, faster release validation. We can actually get you up and running much faster for significantly less cost, with one-fifth cost of manual effort. New feature adoption, we've seen our customers are able to adopt new features 2 to 4 times faster than when they're doing things manually. We also provide automated impact analysis, and also perform auto health checks apart from your traditional functional regression testing that is being done. So you can reduce the total cost of ownership by 30% of your whole cloud journey, both during implementation and post implementation. So let me do a quick demo of the platform so you get an idea what we're talking about. So this is a login screen of the platform, and when you subscribe to the service, you will get access to the platform. We will set it up for your applications and modules that are in place, and it's not restricted based on the user licenses or anything like that. We will give access to anybody in your team that requires access. I'm going to quickly log in. So if you look at it, we've got a quick dashboard view here. We have six default charts that we have that says scope by modules, what is the automation completion status. We have automation versus manual status. You've got the development status of the automated test, where we are in the process of onboarding. When we are in the execution phase, you see the execution results. We also can show defect stats here. I don't have data here, but you'll see that defect stats. You can filter as well. You can filter by application, or you can filter by product or module or releases. There's a lot of things you can customize from a dashboard standpoint. If you want to get into more details, if you want to see a tabular view, you could do that as well. You can get into more details of the reports as well. Right, so that's a quick dashboard view. Let me pull up a quick test case for you to see how it looks. So I'm going to pull up an ERP cloud test, the create receivables invoice test case. So when we are onboarding these automated tests for you, we are doing this for your implementation. It's not just something that is out of the box vanilla scenarios, though we do have libraries available for vanilla scenarios, but when we are doing the configuration for you, it is specific to your implementation. And as we are getting you onboarded, we also take screenshots that helps us with the both with the documentation as well as the results files. So for example, I can click on the download uh, here, and it actually downloads my test case documentation. So if you see here, it's fairly detailed. So you've got the screenshot and the step that we are performing. Um, and even all this is configurable. You can say where, at what steps you want screenshots, take a part of your documentation and all. And next time I generate the document, you get the most latest version of it. So this way you're actually even keeping up with the documentation and not have to worry about your documentation going stale. We even have customers who use it for training purposes as well, because it's fairly detailed and it's always kept up to date and all. Right, so that's one benefit from a documentation standpoint. And same thing with results. If you look at it here, we kind of document the run history of the test. Whenever the test is executed, it's documented. It documents how long it took to execute the test, which environment the test got executed, the overall status and all. And you can also see the results. Again, results are also fairly detailed. So you've got the details of the test. If there are any fail steps, you see that upfront, so you don't have to go through the whole results file to figure out where it failed. And also, if you see, you've got very detailed screenshots and the steps for results. This is downloadable as well, so I can click on this PDF. So you can kind of download this documentation as well. Again, you've got the test case name, overall status, how much time it took to execute, when we executed it, which browser, environment, and all, right? And you've got the screenshots and the steps. So even if your users are not running these tests, they should be able to validate it comfortably, um, right, without having to worry about it. Right. So another thing we also take care of is the test data management. We try to automate that process as much as possible, so we don't keep coming back for data. For example, if the data changes dynamically every time we have to run a test, we will figure out a way to fetch that data in real time before running the test, right? So it could be, if since it's a SaaS application, if we don't have access to the database, we will run the reports that are provided and then use that to fetch the necessary data and input to our test case to run the test. If we have database access, if it's an on-prem system, then we would connect to the database, write queries, and fetch that information. You could also upload an Excel or CSV file if you want to give the data that way. You can also iterate through the test cases with different sets of data. For example, if I have to run a hire test case with different types of hires, I could do that, by with a single automated test. I could run the same test with different sets of data. So they're actually increasing coverage of your automated tests. But still, you're keeping the number of automated tests to the minimum, right? So you can increase your coverage through data as well. And last but not least, if you want to do an end-to-end test that has dependency on a previous test, then you can actually, we have the functionality to group these test cases. Right, for example, I'll pull this particular group of test cases. So I can create a new job, and then I can, for that particular job, I could hire an employee, and then for the same employee, I could add absences, or I could terminate them, I could, rehire and all that, right? So this, by grouping these, the platform is intelligent enough to know that these are going to run in sequence and there is a data dependency with the previous test. And then, for example, we have other tests that have no dependency. So I could just pull them here. Let me just add these. So this way you can orchestrate the test where, let's say, since these don't have dependency, these can run in parallel, while as soon as it comes to this test, it knows that it needs to run in sequence, right? So this way we can kind of create test sets, orchestrate these tests, and set it up and trigger the tests so they can run behind the scenes unmonitored. Right, and these tests, the way I've grouped them, it doesn't have to be within your application. Like I said, this could be an integration call. It could be I'm running a test in a different system first, and then I'm coming to the SaaS application and validating things. All those can be orchestrated in a similar fashion as well, right? Like for example, I can pull up a quick test set here. So it's a procure to pay test set, right? So if you see here, I can kind of run the whole procure to pay process, group them together and run them in sequence, where I'm creating a purchase requisition, and then for that I'm creating a purchase order, creating a receipt, creating the invoice, creating payment, accounting, and all, right? I can run this whole process without manual intervention by grouping them together, where I am actually, even the data is flowing from one test to the other test, right? So this kind of helps you significantly reduce any manual intervention required or coordination required between different teams, because these traverse through multiple modules, and multiple modules have different owners and all, right? So you have to do this manually. There's a lot of significant coordination that is required to do, but with automation setup, you should be able to run these without any issues. Let me just quickly show you a quick execution of the test I was showing you. You can even select browsers. It could even be device compatibility. If required, we can select environment where you want to run this test. There's a lot of things you can configure. So none of this is hard coded. So you should be able to configure a lot of these things and execute them as needed. If you want to test any workflows as well, we should be able to test that accordingly, by grouping those test cases and providing the approval workflow. So anytime I'm running this test, I can log in as a particular user, submit an invoice, and I could log in as a supervisor and then approve the invoices. There's even the approval workflows or different types of workflows can be automated as well as and executed without manual intervention. Another thing is that, when we're running these tests, we don't have to babysit them. For the demo purpose, we're showing this, but usually these are run in virtual machines behind the scenes. Once all the tests are completed, you'll get the results. You can validate those. And as part of the service, we also triage the defects. We don't just chuck it off the wall for your teams to figure out why a test failed. We have our own subject matter experts who understand these applications, and they will do an initial triage to see if it's really a defect. If it is, then we will share the necessary defect logs that you can use to um, either log an SR or um, either log an SR or fix your personalization or anything like that. For some customers, we also take care of logging SR, tracking SR, and all that as well. Um, but that's an add-on service that we provide. But predominantly, our focus is on doing automation testing. Okay, so that's the test that we've completed. So let me quickly show you one more thing. So integrations is another thing we do support. I was talking about, so we can actually set up the integrations, whether it's API based or FTP based and all, set them up, and then we'll be able to run these tests, call these tests, and execute these tests as part of our executions. In terms of defect management and all, we have the functionality available in CloudTestr. Even the requirements, if you're using Excels and all, you could leverage the platform for overall test management as well, from requirements to test cases to defects tracking and all. If not, if needed, we can integrate with your test management tools as well, like Jira and all. We should be able to replicate the defects and stuff in your environment if required as well. So let me go back to the presentation. So, so how it works, right? So if you do sign up with us and share the application details and documentation, we do that initial analysis and all. We don't take up too much of time from your team because we understand how these modules and applications and business processes work. All we are trying to understand by looking at the application and documentation is how you have done the implementation. Right. Once that is done, we will get any clarifications that we need after we do the review and all, and agree on a scope with you. Once that is done, we do the onboarding. That's the one-time process that I talked about. We'll set up CloudTestr access for your organization, for your teams. We'll do the capture configure of these automated tests, review it with your team, and get it signed off. Once that is done, every time there is a release coming up, whether it's monthly, quarterly release, or any on-demand testing that you might need, the tests are executed, any retesting has to be done is done, results are reviewed and signed off. And like I said, we also can provide on-demand support in case you want us to do the SR management or help you with any fixes and things like that. Our team can provide that on demand as well if needed. So why CloudTestr? This is the only platform actually is available on Oracle Cloud Marketplace. It's certified by Oracle. Also, is recommended by Oracle. We provide this as platform as a service. Pricing is also based on subscription consumption based pricing. So you'll be paying for what you're using, and it's an annual subscription price. There is no separate cost for licenses or infrastructure or resources or things like that. This is the most popular model, though we do have other models, especially for SaaS customers. This is the most popular model because if you do ROI analysis with doing things yourself versus subscribing to this model, you'll see a significant reduction in effort and cost. We do have pre-built test cases available with us for package solutions. We can work with you to even review your test coverage and provide any recommendations based on our experience working with other customers. It is an enterprise platform, so you can extend it beyond your SaaS to on-prem and web, mobile integrations and as such. We have a dashboard that I've shown you. We also automate the data management part of it as much as possible to minimize dependency and keep coming back to you asking for data whenever executions have to happen. We will get you up and running pretty fast. Onboarding takes somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks. And once it is done, every time you have to run these tests, we complete it within 5 business days. We also provide you impact analysis report that I talked about at least week and a half ahead of your release. We also perform auto health checks, performance monitoring, like I said, to check any process slowdowns, anything like that. We do identify those issues and notify you. Documentation is auto generated, as you have seen, so you can always keep the documentation up to date. Results files are downloadable and they are very detailed with screenshots. So even if your users are not running the test, they should be able to leverage the results files to validate and sign off. Integrations are supported, as well as any audit support that you might need. Everything that usually auditors are looking for is available in the platform and can be supported. We do have a lot of customers, enterprise customers, and a lot of customers that have been working with us to provide this automated testing support for them. These are just a snapshot of few of them that have been leveraging it successfully for their Oracle SaaS products. That's all we had to cover. We can open it up to Q&A if you have any questions available. And we also have this information, our website details, the cloud marketplace link, points of contact that you can reach out to if needed to get more information, whether it's the pricing or how it works, or if you want to talk to any of our customers, right? We should be able to provide you all the necessary information to make an informed decision.
All right. Thanks, Lavanya. So we do have a couple questions that have come in through the chat. You probably touched on this briefly when you were going through, the service delivery model. But one of the question was basically who scripts the test cases, and then is the platform basically an automated way to generate the scripts? So maybe you can elaborate on those two details.
Sure. So in terms of who develops the scripts, so we will, as part of the service, we will get you up and running with automation. So that is done by our team. Obviously, we will take the details in terms of test cases, documentation, anything that could help us understand your implementation is taken from your end, and then we will review once we have automated with your team to make sure that it's working as expected and get a sign off during the initial onboarding process. And once that is done, every time we have a release, and we will be updating and executing these tests. In terms of what was the second question on?
Is the platform basically a way to auto generate the actual test scripts?
Yes, so it is a scriptless solution that we have. So what we do is we capture and configure a transaction like a user would do, and the platform auto generates the automated script for us. So we don't write any code as such. It is taken care of by the platform.
Okay, great. And then there was a question about PHI. I'm assuming that's personal health information. The question is there a way to redact that information from the screenshots? So maybe you can elaborate on how we handle that sort of sensitive data.
Great question. Great question. Yes, we can. We can actually, even in screenshots, we can redact the sensitive information, as well as when we are using the actual test data. We can encrypt the data so that when we are running it, even it is not anywhere visible to see when the executions are happening. And as well as in screenshots, we can redact any specific fields, particular information that needs to be redacted for sensitive data. We could do that in screenshots as well.
Great. There's another question here about the documentation. You basically touched on it a little bit about in terms of who updates it, but basically, how is the documentation and or scripts updated? And maybe you can elaborate on how, from a PDF perspective, how customers can manage the actual test results data if they need to store it locally.
Sure, sure. So in terms of documentation, as you've seen, as part of the update to a test, right? So we can update if something changed as part of hire an employee process, right? So as part of that, we can update, and then when you generate the document the next time, it has the most latest version of it. And in terms of maintaining these PDF files and all, yes, you have option to download these and store in local SharePoint or anything like that, or you can log into the platform and look at them from there as well, right? So you have multiple options. We do provide. For some of our customers, they don't want to come into the platform and review it on the platform. So what we do is we do download once the executions are done, both the results files and documentation, and place it at a SharePoint location or wiki, or whichever customers are using, where their teams can go and review and sign off, right? So that facility is available. So either you can do it on the platform, or you could download and review it offline.
Excellent. And we have two questions that just came in, both of a similar theme, around basically about the amount of time it takes us to build the scripts for specific customers, whether they be SaaS, PaaS, or on-prem, et cetera. So maybe you can talk about the average timelines to basically onboard a new client, and then maybe updates, timelines when a patch is deployed. What is our turnaround time for updating the scripts as well?
Sure, sure. Okay, so for the SaaS applications, predominantly we are able to get you up and running in about 6 weeks or so. If it is on-prem applications, it depends mostly on the amount of details you have available in terms of the customizations you have done. Have those been documented and in good shape? If so, then we should be able to do that in about 8 weeks or so for on-prem applications. If it is related to integrations, integrations is one thing which is going to be very unique to every organization. So we will have to work with your team to understand how many integrations you have, what type of integration is it? Is it an inbound? Is it outbound? Is it API based, FTP based, and things like that, right? So once we gather the information, we can provide the timeline for that, for integrations. There is no set timeline at this point. It completely depends from customer to customer, depending on how many integrations and what type of integrations you have.
Okay. And then there's actually a follow-up to that question from the same participant. How do we handle change management, right? Can you maybe talk through the process and methodology
Sure.
followed for change management?
Sure, absolutely. So for the cloud SaaS application customers, what we do is, at least a week or two before your pod is updated with the latest release from your SaaS provider, we do the impact analysis of the changes coming in, whether it's fixes, whether it's enhancements and new features and all, and we'll provide a report that kind of accounts for, hey, these are the changes that are coming in, this is how it's impacting your implementation, this is how it's impacting the test cases that we have automated. It could be that we'll probably have to update certain tests, we might have to retire certain tests, we might have to add new tests, right? So we will provide that complete report, and give you a plan for the upcoming release, right? So that's, and that is what is, once the pod is updated, then we'll implement that particular plan, right? So that's how we are supporting the change management process. Usually customers don't have to go back and review and figure out what is changing. We can provide that report to you.
Excellent. We have a question about the ROI. I know you touched on this during the presentation, but maybe you can delve a little deeper in terms of the cost of the CloudTestr platform versus other software testing services or platforms that are available, and then maybe talk a little bit about the time savings that clients have reported.
Sure, sure. So in terms of return on investment, we are able to show somewhere between 55 to 65% reduction in cost by subscribing to CloudTestr. So some customers it's more, some customers it's less, depending on how much effort they're currently spending on doing the testing manually. In terms of comparison with other tools in the market, it's not a direct, straightforward comparison, because either you are purchasing a tool and then building around it, and then you have to have resources supporting it, or you have to have service provider supporting it, or you have a service provider who's doing this testing mostly manually, as part of their managed services, right? So we're providing completely all inclusive, and we are able to show a reduction of 55 to 65% of cost compared to if you're doing things manually.
Okay.
And just to add, we can actually help you make a business case and also calculate an ROI, provide you that ROI analysis and all, so that you can internally make a business case to get a sign off on what would be the benefit of leveraging CloudTestr versus how you're doing things currently.
Excellent. Excellent. Last question that's on up right now is, can you talk a little bit about how we handle the test data and the security of that test data?
Absolutely. So if let's say that there is PII data involved, so the multiple ways we are handling it. One, we do have a process that is available that would help us to scramble the PII data in the lower environments where we would be performing the tests. And once we have completed the test, you can rerun the script and put the data back to where it is and disable the access to us. So that's one way. You also have option if you're working with Oracle. They do have masking option. You could some of our customers have subscribed to that. So you log an SR and Oracle will do the masking in the lower environment where you're doing the test, and so that we don't have access to PII data, right? We also, like I said, encrypt the data so that we are never seeing any of that sensitive information. So if more information is needed, please reach out to us. We can actually talk to you in more detail on how we handle the sensitive data at multiple levels to make sure that that information is not accessible when we're doing the testing.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And then there's one last question. Um, I'm going to kind of paraphrase because I'm still trying to get clarity on it. But maybe you can elaborate. Is the CloudTestr platform, is it only for cloud automation or cloud applications? Um, I know you touched on it a little bit, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit more there.
Sure, sure. No, it's not. It is an enterprise platform. It does support on-prem systems, whether it's Oracle based on-prem systems or SAP, even SaaS. It doesn't have to be Oracle. We do support other SaaS products like Salesforce or Workday, Concur, and anything like that. So it is an enterprise platform. It is not restricted to Oracle Cloud or Oracle on-prem. It even works on your web mobile applications as well.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So last call for questions if there are any. Okay, so thank you very much for dialing in and listening today. We do appreciate your time. Lavanya, I believe this will be posted, a recording of this will be posted online, probably on LinkedIn. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we'll post
Okay.
it, and anybody who's subscribed, we could even send an email with the details.
Okay. Sounds good. So thank you all. We do appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend ahead. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.